It's just a matter of will. And during the 20 years I've been in Congress, it's not been politically correct to support nuclear energy. If we're serious about bringing more resources in the energy field and reducing our dependence on foreign sources of energy, we have to do all of the above. And doing all of the above means that we ought to have renewables. Well, I'm for wind, I'm for solar. I'm also for additional oil and gas exploration that I think that we can do in an environmentally sensitive way. We also need clean coal technology, and we need nuclear power. We have to do all of the above if we're serious about growing our economy and moving ourselves off of this dependence on foreign oil. When you look at what the Chinese are doing, they're building coal-fired power plants, they're building nuclear power plants, and they're buying every energy resource they can get their hands on any place in the world. Why? Because they understand that you cannot grow an economy without energy.
Good morning, Leader Boehner. We purchase many resources from other countries, such as steel from China. Why don't we use the resources that we have in America, such as the steel that used to be manufactured in Ohio?
Well, we still produce a lot of steel in Ohio, and I can bring it down to AK Steel in my district that does, in fact, produce a lot of steel. Except, if this cap-and-trade proposal goes into effect, or their national energy tax, what will happen is the steel from China will be far less expensive than the steel produced here. And that, I think, we cannot allow to happen. When you look at the amount of trade that goes on in the world, understand this. We continue to be the largest exporter of manufactured goods and services in the world. And that's why these free trade agreements with Panama, Colombia, and South Korea are critically important, because those countries have access to our market. We have the most open market in the world. What these free trade agreements will do is give us better access to their markets, thereby creating jobs here in the United States.
Thank you, Speaker Boehner, for coming today.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
When Pete Corrigan defeats Dennis Kucinich in November and helps the Republicans take back the Congress, I just am curious if there's been any discussions what we can do to push back the unelected fourth branch of government, the regulatory branch, and what specific plans, because it seems like with this administration they have taken on new power every day, and I just wondered, if you can share some insights as to how we can do that.
Well, a lot of this is the Congress's fault. We've reduced members to being mere voters. I remember growing up in the Ohio House, you learn pretty quickly how to be a legislator. And the members aren't legislators anymore. They're voters. They could whip out their voting card and they vote. When you look at the laws that are passed today, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of rulemakings required by some agency of the federal government. You can look at the financial services bill that was signed into law, requiring 300 or 400 new regulatory filings that have to occur. When you look at the health care bill, again, you see dozens and dozens and dozens of regulatory filings that have to happen. So when you ask your consultant that's going to advise you as to how much your health insurance is going to cost under the new plan, they can't tell you. Why? Because the rules haven't been written yet. This is where Congress needs to provide proper oversight of executive branch agencies. I think the Congress has given up far too much of its power to the executive branch. Congress needs to provide effective oversight. If Congress wants to pass a law, then we ought to pass a law. We ought to make it clear what it is we're doing and write it in law, and not leave it to unelected busybodies and bureaucrats to write a new rule for us. All these rules, all these regulations, somebody has to comply with them, but you can't comply with them until you understand what they are. So you've got to hire a consultant to find out, well, how does this affect my business? And then you've got to find a way to provide for record keeping, and then whatever remedial action you might actually have to take. Every rule, every regulation costs someone something. And when we look at why we're losing manufacturing jobs in America, it's because high corporate tax rates, we've got the highest, second highest in the world, and we've got more regulations on American businesses than any other country in the world, driving up the cost, making America less competitive.
Good morning, Congressman. Welcome back to Cleveland. In the financial package that was just passed, left out of that package appeared to be any regulations or controls over Fannie and Freddie, who the government has spent billions trying to bail out. How do we get a handle on that and prevent hundreds of billions of dollars more in bailout funds for those two organizations?
Well, it's one of the reasons why I had to oppose the bill, because they're going to punish every financial institution in America, to pay for the sins of a handful on Wall Street. And the three biggest problems that led to the downfall and the financial meltdown, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and subprime lending, none of the three are addressed in this bill. Now, they have to be addressed. We've pumped $150 billion into Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And God only knows how much more we'll have to go into there. Yet there's no plan to reform these two quasi-government agencies. It needs to be done.
Would you comment briefly, if it can be done, on global warming? Do you think it is a concern? And if cap and trade is not the right approach, do you have a general strategic direction you would recommend?
There's no question that over the last 100 years, there's been a change in our climate. How much man is responsible for this is still up for debate, as we've seen over the last couple of years. A lot of different debate over man's involvement. When you look at a volcanic eruption, which I've seen scientists reveal that this could be 50,000 times what man's involvement in terms of creating CO2 would be, you begin to scratch your head and wonder, wait a minute, what is this? But before we jump off the deep end of imposing a national energy tax that'll cost us millions of American jobs every single year, we ought to have real evidence about what the facts are. But I would also add this. If you want a serious attempt at cleaning up the air, I don't want to breathe dirty air. I don't want my kids or grandkids to do it. Here's what we should do. We should do all of the above. Because if we did all of the above, we would have more energy, we would have cheaper energy, and frankly, we would have cleaner air. This is a common sense step toward addressing the issues of climate change and CO2 in a way that would benefit all Americans.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we have been listening to the Honorable John Boehner, Minority Leader in the U.S. Congress. Thank you very much, Representative Boehner. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned. Great job. Great job.